Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boxing fans. I know I just did an update and I just published it, and people are just now kind of filtering watching that one. But I felt the need to do a secondary update because I started seeing some chatter on various forums, and these are unfortunately forums that have been in the past places where even pro fighters have gone. So people like Jamel Herring and others have actually been on these forums, which should have lent a bit of credibility to the forums. But as of I'd say 2015 ish, we started getting an influx of casual fans. There's nothing wrong with casual fans, but I wanted to put an update to try to educate those people because I'm now starting to see people who say they're theorizing that Tyron Woodley either took a dive, which almost made me die in laughter, or that this was a scripted outcome. That because of the cadence of the fight in general, and then the later outcome and the way that Tyron behaved, that this was a scripted outcome, that Tyron basically, his whole thing was to take a check and get knocked out to help Jake Paul. That's the narrative going around various forums. And this is coming from casual fans. So this update is a secondary update. It's an analysis update. And my goal is to simply educate you as to what you saw so that you understand what really happened, because it's clear that some don't. Others will agree with what I'm saying because they know the boxing business and the game, and they understand what they saw was a legitimate knockout from a Tyron Woodley who ultimately fell for a trap. So the sequence here, this is in I believe the sixth round, is that Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley are ultimately they're looking at each other, and then Jake, if you watch what Jake's doing, watch his whole body language. And I know it's hard when it's at speed, so I'm coupling this with a slowed down version of the sequence so that you can try to do an analysis. And you're going to need to watch this back a couple of times if you are a casual boxing fan to try to understand the science. That's why it's called the sweet science. There's a technique, and Chino Maidana did the same thing to Adrian Broner, and there's been numerous other examples of this over time, where a boxer, when you're in there against another skilled boxer, your eyes should be watching the totality of a boxer's body. This is from your head to your feet. And that should tell you, at least with some confidence, where the fighter's next shot's coming from. And if you want to contrast this, Chino versus Adrian Broner is the best example of when this happened before in most notorious fashion. But there was also Floyd versus Shane Mosley round two when Floyd got caught with the big shot, and Floyd talked about it. So what happens is when you're trying to look at the whole body of the fighter, as you know, it's hard to see everything they're doing, but everything matters from your feet placement to where your arms start to where your arms end up to where a throw is coming from. And if you're really skilled, you can adjust midstream where your punches go. Canelo Alvarez is actually very good at this with his feint, where he will feint a shot that comes like an inch away from landing, where your instinct is to try to block it, but when you go to block it, he nails you with that uppercut or he nails you with a body shot. That's just hand movement alone. When you couple that with something like your head, you also need to look at where the boxer's looking at you, because that should give you a signal of where they're about to throw. But when you're at the skill level of a Jake Paul and others, you get taught techniques to trick your opponent when they're only watching your eyes and not everything else going on. So what happened in this sequence is that Jake Paul is looking directly at Tyron Woodley's body as he's coming in. And it looks like when he goes to throw, the punch from the level looks like he's about to throw a body shot. Now, Tyron Woodley, his instinct is to guard upstairs, but then he sees that the shot looks like it's going to the body, and he drops his left hand to try to guard a body shot. But Jake switches it, and it comes up over the top and hits him in the chin. It was one of those perfectly timed sequences that I don't see that Tyron did anything wrong. It was just you can't estimate where the shot's coming from if you're just looking at the and you see he's trying to go for your body and you think he's going to go for the body, especially if he had been doing that all night. Your instinct is correct that you're going to try to guard the body. If it's coming from your left side, all you can do is block the left, block the body if you're standing in front of the guy. Now, you could try to step back, right, which is what Canelo normally would do. is he would try to step back or he tried to lean back to try to avoid the shot even landing. But that assumes that you had known this is coming and I'm not sure exactly what his technique is going to be. The problem is there was no signal for Tyron to really know what was going to happen other than a body shot. And it's hard because if you've never done any sort of boxing, whether to spar or at a pro level or at an amateur level, you don't know that this could happen. You would have had to have studied significant types of fights. I would also say that at cruiserweight in particular, it's very unique to see a boxer do what Jake did. Outside of somebody like Alexander Usyk or, others that are at heavyweight now, it's very unique to see that kind of stylistic switch midstream. So I'm not going to hold that against Tyron at all because as I watched the sequence over and over again, he did what I would instinctively have done if I were in his position, which is, okay, I did an evade not knowing where he's going to throw. And if he had left his hand upstairs, Jake could feasibly have switched it to a body shot. And then could he have taken the body shot? But in the heat of the moment, you're talking a split-second decision. You don't know where that punch might go or where it might land. I would argue that, yes, he might have been able to take the body shot easier, but if it was a strong enough body shot directly to the let's say sternum or at a kidney level or something, that might have buckled you and been a lot more hurtful. And so when we see these narratives of a guy, quote, taking a dive, when it's a legitimate, beautiful, very well-timed, very precise knockout right on the chin, but it's done off of a feint, essentially, fake jab, and then you just simply catch him, and it's a heat-of-the-moment thing. I hear that narrative, and it's clear that these are people that have never stepped in and, as Floyd would say, never laced on a pair of gloves in their lifetime. That's what you're seeing. People don't understand the science part of boxing because they're too used to guys like Edwin Valero who would go out there and just slug. That's what they're used to. So to them, it doesn't make sense you get caught with a shot like that, especially because it wasn't mid-sequence. It wasn't like it was a mid-combo. It was just a well-timed shot. And it happens. It happens. I've seen it time and time again where just you get clipped with that right shot. It just happens when you're in the heat of the moment. You only have a split second to make a decision. Sometimes guys will just choose to take it on the body and see if they can weather it because they know that, hey, I'd rather guard the chin because I know my chin's shaky. Sometimes the guy wants to try to block everything coming at them because they're trying not to get knocked out and they know that they're in with a dangerous puncher. And some guys are just good at that trick out technique like a Canelo Alvarez. So to those casuals out there, I have no problem with you watching boxing, but you really need to stop with the leaps. Talking about that this guy chose to get sparked out cold off the chin just because you don't understand the science of what you saw. And I'm hopeful that this secondary video and a slowed down effort to kind of show you what happened is going to help convince you this was not a setup. This was not a staged fight. This was not anything other than Jake Paul showing you there are levels to his game. Is he at the top level? No, he's still a new fighter. But it's clear from the sparring that he's done with veterans. He sparred with veterans. He is a legitimate fighter who's taking it seriously, and he's dangerous for those that give him the chance to get that kind of a shot in there. Any fighter could fall for that, though. I remember Andre Ward got sparked out by a shot from Darnell Boone. This is before Ward was at his peak. He got sparked out by a shot he didn't see coming. It happens. It happens to the best in the business. There's nothing about it that tells me that it was a setup or that it was anything other than a beautiful shot that just happened to go where Tyron did not expect it. And I'm hopeful, again, that the video I just put up and seeing it slow down will show you the science behind what you saw. And you've got to put yourself, I know it's hard for some of you, you've got to imagine in the heat of a moment, you're talking a split-second decision, not knowing where a punch is coming, and the power of the guy that's throwing it, you probably would have got caught too. Unless you were dodging out of the way. And if you're dodging out of the way, guess what? You're going to get booed out of the building. Hopefully that's helped. I didn't plan to put this up, but I started seeing people being absolutely nonsense with what they were talking about, so I'm hopeful that this has helped.